video games and hip hop together and stuff, right? So she was just kind of like, interviewing artists and seeing what kind of games they like, what systems they play, and all that stuff, right? And it's funny because that really didn't go too well, but like I find it interesting how like recently Drake was playing Fortnite and shit, and that shit just went viral for like just went viral, bro, you know what I mean? So, but I mean, like, of course, when it's on a scale like that, then definitely.
Well, whatever he does is gonna blow up. A guy like him.
I try, bro. You know what I mean?
But then, so you didn't put it up, eh?
It went up, but like it went up on her page and stuff like that, and I promoted it, had it on my Instagram and whatnot. But it didn't stay up for that long because the girl who was doing it, I don't know, like she was the kind of girl, like I was helping her out because she's my friend, but like she doesn't even know what she wants to do in the entertainment business. So it's like she was trying different things. So she had this interview and she wanted to do this interview, and I was like, her, I don't know, I guess maybe 8th or 9th interview, which is not bad or whatever, but at the end of the day, I don't know, like after my interview plus a few more, she just kind of like stopped doing it. So maybe because it didn't catch any clout or any like.
As someone who was listening to music, like I desperately wanted more from you. I wanted more to hear. Oh, there's a little bit of an echo. Do you hear?
You can hear like me, or like you hear.
I can hear myself. Or usually if you have like a pair of headphones, that will work better.
Okay, yeah. Let me let's see. My iPhone headphones won't plug into this laptop because they plug into the.
Oh, it's the new ones?
Yeah.
It's okay. It's not too bad. It's not that big of a deal.
But it wasn't there before.
Yeah, it's okay. It should be alright. This my dog always goes nuts, especially right after.
Yeah.
Work it, make it, do it, makes us harder, better, faster, stronger.
Alright, let's get this started.
Yeah, bro.
Let's get this started.
So, Echo, you can still hear me?
Nope. No, it's good.
Echo?
I can hear you.
Good? Okay, good,
Perfect,
good.
Alright, let's fire this up. Alright, we're live. Let me see if I can. Just confirm. Alright, man.
Yo.
Thanks for doing this. G, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So anyway, this is cool, man. This is the first time I've actually spoken to someone who's got a body of work. We were talking about that earlier. Like,
Yeah.
last couple of guests that I've had on the show are more casual, which is great. But you actually, you're in the spotlight, man. You're a big deal, man.
I try, bro. I try to make myself a big deal, So, I mean, at the end of the day, it's just all about perseverance, consistency, things that like, every day you should probably be focused on anyway, right? So,
how long have you been a musician, an artist for?
A while now. I mean, like right now I'm 29, so I would probably. I mean, like I've been writing music ever since junior high. Like I went to Valleys, like since I was like 14, 15. I was writing music. So I consider myself an artist from there. But I mean, as far as like a musical artist, I would probably say for like the last 8 years or so, last 5 years, I've been taking it really, really seriously. So, ranging from like being a producer to just being an artist. Like the catalog that's online or like that's released right now is strictly just like me as an artist, but there was a previous life of me where I was like a producer making beats for big artists too, big artists that people don't really know too much about. So
Actually, there's a little bit of like bits and pieces that I was trying to when I was looking you up. Like, I spent a lot of time, and actually, like, it was a very enjoyable research period because I listened to a lot of your music, and
yeah,
I know that you were producing a lot of music as well. And on YouTube, there's a bit of you, some of your work there too. So maybe I guess the way I'm gonna go right into it, man. Let's talk a little bit
yeah.
about your let's talk a little bit about your music and this new track that I was playing earlier before we went live. Um, when did you release this new track? It's called Seeing Things.
Seeing things, yeah. So seeing things out now on Spotify, Apple Music, wherever you want to get your music, listen to it. It's there. I released that. I would say, I think that was late February, maybe. Or no, early February. Yeah, beginning of February is when I released that shit. So I just that's the single for my next project called Rejuvenation, which is a collaboration with me and my producer Juvie. Shout out to Juvie. Me and him pretty much got together like we always do. We like he's been my producer for obviously like the last 10 years probably I would say. Me and him have been fucking around for a minute. So
So yeah, no, like I went through all your albums, man, and it's such a prolific body of work that you have. You started early, the early 2000, even like maybe 2000. What was your first album that you released? When did you
shit. First
2012?
official.
Something like that.
Yeah, no, actually, you know what? It was, to be honest, it was kind of late in my career, early to maybe to some people, but it was definitely, I think it was maybe around 2015, maybe 2014.
And there's a huge so
DLC.
you can follow like all the albums that you dropped, and I can see like this your sound has changed over the years, right? And you can, and I bet you sometimes when you kind of go over your work, you kind of go, wow, this is a different time in my life. But I want to talk a little bit about the lyrics then, like Seeing Things, right? The first part of the song, you talk a little bit about, first of all, the music that you have, like, it's just this very amazing. It's like ominous mood music that makes me feel like, yeah, there's a deeper grind to everything. So when you go, trust me, man, I see that crimes pay off, grinding every day, no days off. When I listen to that, like there's two different meanings that come from that. This idea is that you've seen crime, you've seen things go down, and the funny thing is when I analyze lyrics, it's like talking about comedians. It's like trying to break a joke down and you kind of ruin it. But there's so much meaning to your lyrics. So that's why when I see something like "Trust me, man, I see that crime pays off," it's like, are you talking about growing up with crime around you and choosing not to take a part of that, or are you talking about like it takes a little bit of that, a little bit of this, and a little bit of that to make the magic happen?
I would say it's a little bit of both, Yeah, I mean, like at the end of the day, crime is not something I want to resort to be able to grind or to be able to make money or to be able to succeed in life, right? Um, when I was younger in certain high school days, I know I was either good or I was either bad, and I was doing things to make myself, you know, to get myself more money, or I was, just being good, kind of just staying out of the trouble and whatnot. But for that line in particular, it's
You hit
more
us right
like,
away with that. It's like that's the first thing you
yeah,
want to talk about because it's on your
yeah,
mind, right?
yeah. It's like it's like a lot of crime happens, and sometimes it happens for the good. You know what I mean? Kind of like a Robin Hood type of thing, rob from the rich, give to the poor kind of thing. It was more of a situation where I want people to see that crime pays off, but in a sense where depending on how you use it, depending on what where the proceeds go to, you know what I mean? What you're doing with it, I think is a very essential part of growing, of realizing what's wrong, what's right, being able to take good from the wrong, or take right from the wrong and make it good. You know what I mean? In that particular, but for me, it's more like I've seen a lot of crime grow up around me. You know what I mean? And it's more like I've done certain things where that has gotten me in trouble. So it's like, okay, but when I see certain other people and they do the same things and they get away with it. You know what I mean? They get away with it, or like you see someone rob a bank, they get caught. The next person robs a bank, they're still looking for the person, right? It's like that dude. It's like people are envious of that dude, right? Because that dude right now is walking around with like $50,000 in his back pocket or whatever, because he successfully did something, right? So obviously it pays off. I mean, nobody really gets hurt if you do it right. You know what I mean? So I mean, like at the end of the day, crime to me pays off in a sense where if you do it right, everybody kind of wins. But at the same time, you want to make sure you're not hurting nobody. You know what I mean? You're not taking from anybody where it's gonna hurt somebody's feelings, or even just kind of like uh, you don't want to step on anybody's toes while trying to get yours. You know what I mean? And when it comes to the crime and whatnot, there's a lot of crime that goes on in the city, especially Toronto it's been growing, right? But I feel like most of that crime is just pointless. It's all pointless crime. People are shooting people for no reason, right? Over drugs, over this, over that. But like, really, like drug dealers can all just work together. You know what I mean? At the end of the day, yeah, that's a crime, but you know what? We work together, puts food on the table. You know what I mean? So,
Gee, you make me
that's
think
that's
about
been,
you make me think about the music industry. Remember, I kind of talked to you a little bit about the idea that look, even in the music industry, how everything's sort of set up and put in place. Certain
yeah,
systems that are designed to promote certain types of music and keep others down, and like that's sort of a crime in itself. If we kind of analyze these new platforms, which I think you and I can talk a little bit about later, but
mhm,
I find that your new track speaks from like as what you're saying from a little bit from experience and a little bit of being informed and staying in touch with things.
absolutely,
You got to stay informed from the news and to know what's happening. I want to talk a little bit
absolutely.
about these other tracks that you've dropped, man. Like I love this track that you did in 2017. It was called Nine God,
Nine God, yeah, yeah,
and it's like the track talks a lot about Saga City. It talks
yeah,
about where you're from. It talks about this idea is that the six is there, but if you flip six, you get this city right behind it, and that's
right
where you
next,
and I are from.
exactly.
And I love that track, and I cannot believe that's not an anthem,
Yeah,
And then I kept
yeah.
thinking about like, what is this track like? Who's he speaking for? What is like? Who are the people listening to it? And I go, man, this is such an amazing, heartfelt track from someone from Saga. So maybe you could talk a little bit about that track.
Yeah, well, I mean, so that song really was that was like almost like a trial song kind of thing. And what I mean by that is that beat originally was for a different track. So it was for a different song called Fuck With Me. And I made the song, I even released the song, so it's on there too. But people don't realize the difference. The same beat, but it's two different songs. So on my Gorilla Season album, there's a song called "Fuck with Me." It's the exact same beat as Nine God. Now the reason why I redid it is because I didn't really like the "Fuck with Me" beat, and I was in love with the Nine God beat. And I was thinking in my head, okay, you know what? Let me redo this track. And I do that a lot, and I think it's essential for artists to be able to go in on something, recognize mistakes, and still be able to fix it, or even just switch it around, and not be afraid of the fact that maybe you released it already and it was already out there for people.
Hmm.
I think it's important for people to realize that music is a growth. People do want to see growth. They want to see um, trial and error. You know what I mean? And I think that's a big thing, because most artists who are successful, they're transparent. You can see a lot that's going on with them. You know what I mean? And particularly for that song, and I've done that with many other songs, but particularly with that one, it was more like I heard the beat and I had this nine god concept, and the concept I just didn't know where to put it to. So then when I wrote this hook, I was like, okay, you know what? Maybe this will flow on this beat, and it worked out perfectly. The reason why I say it's a trial song is because it's only one verse, and then the beat goes on for the whole entire song. Which, if you actually like the song, you might not notice. You might not notice, because music is a crazy thing, man. Music is a crazy thing. There's a lot of small things in music that'll get you hooked. You don't even know you're listening to it, right? but then there's a lot of things in music where they don't fit the standard. They're not your conventional song, your standard song. So you know there's parts missing to it, or what they would say is missing to it. But at the end of the day, a song is a song, and to me, anything in the song is a I appreciate everything. Now the reason why the beat, so the track goes like this. It's like hook, verse, hook, and then there's about 3 minutes, 3.5 minutes of just the beat, just completely beat. I don't even say a word. You know what I mean? And that literally is because I love the beat, and I didn't want to saturate the song too much, but at the same time, I wanted to get the message out, and I wanted to get the flavor out of how the song is. And I was hoping to get a feature on it at some point, but again, like I fell in love with the beat so much, I was just like, I'm just gonna let the beat live. I'm gonna let the beat live. I'm gonna let Juvie have his shine. You hear the instruments in the beat, you hear the bass, you hear the snare, the kicks, the hats. You know, there's actual time to actually appreciate the song and appreciate the beat, which people I don't think do that often anymore, right? So
The
I
production
mean, like,
process, like you've done in your life, like you understand the importance of wrestling with a product and to kind of change it and press it and move it into a way that you want. And that track, I mean, I love the fact that you dropped that, but now, like, even the whole aspect of working hard on it and making those changes, like your viewers or some of your audiences don't even know about that. You know what I mean? Like how much
yeah,
work you put into producing that music is a whole different story in itself. You know?
yeah,
So
absolutely.
yeah, no, man, that is, I really like that, and I find that I'm gonna stick with the lyrics. Another one is
Yeah,
another track you have here called New Breed, and this one's
New Breed.
huge because if you run a search on New Breed, there's a YouTube video, there's a music video of you,
Hmm.
incredible. Like
Yeah,
it's experimental because it wasn't even new. It was a couple years ago, man. Like
yeah,
you know, and then you drop this track and it's high quality production by obviously not too many people. Like I know that you guys are probably like, you know, grassroots, but
yeah, yeah,
you do it and it's so compelling, like this the track. And so you know, you talk about this idea is like, you know, Muslim brothers hard, you can meet wallah, you know, and you do this reference to uh different backgrounds and different ethnic backgrounds. And from Mississauga, like that's why I want to talk to you because I get really pumped about this because we grew up
yeah,
with such
yeah,
diversity, you know. So maybe talk a little bit
absolutely.
about how, you know, your environment has influenced the way you made music, and talk
Yeah,
a little bit about your upbringing, man, in Saga
yeah,
City.
definitely. Definitely. I mean, growing up in Saga, man, like it's crazy when you do music, or even when, like, you know, you're quote unquote like not the popular kid, but like you're just somebody who really knows a lot of people. Your background, your upbringing, it's influenced by a whole lot of different things. You know what I mean? Growing up, I had a whole bunch of different friends. One of my closest friends, he's Arabic, he's Muslim. You know what I mean? Um, and he's Palestinian as well. You know what I mean? So, and this is somebody who I would call my brother. You know, I bring him to my house. You know what I mean? He'd sleep here, like, you know what I mean? He knows my mom, gives her a hug every time he sees her, kind of thing. You know what I mean? So when you know first look at me, you'd probably think I hang around a whole bunch of black guys. You know what I mean? But really, yeah, I mean the upbringing in Saga and in Brampton is clutch to the essence of my music for sure. Especially when I say things like, you know, my muscle niggas hard or whatever, right? So you know, in particular valleys, I had some dudes who are black, who look like me, who are Muslim, which of course you wouldn't even think when you look at them at first strike that these guys are Muslim, that these guys would pray on a Friday or whatever, or you know what I mean. So um, it's really amazing because you know for you to think about you know like you know okay like this guy you know he's rapping, he's talking about, you know, his Muslim niggas hard and shit. It's like, yo, like this guy hangs around a great diverse of people, like a great uh diverse number of people. You know what I mean?
Mm.
It's more like I'm showing you that, listen, who I hang with, there's no limits. You know what I mean? Who I hang with, there's no limits. Who I mess with, who you don't want to mess with, there's no limits. You know what I mean? These guys are who they are, but at the same time, they're hard. You know, you can't step on their toes. You can't, sit there and make fun of them about whatever the case is, because these are my dudes, and these guys are guys who I grew up with. I know them well. So I'm gonna tell you how I see them. You know what I mean? I've seen them do things. I've seen them, handle situations that, even told me like, yo, listen, I'm not even gonna play with my friend here. You know what I mean? So it's like it's dope to be able to have that freedom of diversity, to be able to talk about things like that, because not too many people could. You know what I mean? Where like I have cousins in Queens, and cousins in America and stuff like that, and they, you know, I they don't have the diverse friends that that I got. You know what I mean? They don't know the people I know, even know the things about different religions, different countries, the way that I know, simply just because of location and where I was brought up and where they were brought up, right? So
it's funny because Saga is like interesting, right? And I know you live in Brampton now, but like in Mississauga you have a little Chinatown, and then you've got Rabbas all over, 5 and 10 up to here, Ontario and Egg, and then it's just like the neighborhoods are so many cultures make up these neighborhoods, and then we grow up and we go to school together, and then we become good friends, and then then that diversity sticks with you, whereas certain parts of Canada you don't see that happening. Maybe you can tell me a little bit about growing up in the valleys and high school, and what was more defining for you growing up as a young kid, young guy growing up.
Defining. I mean, as an artist, it was. I mean, high school probably really defined my career as an artist.
Friends, or because you just suddenly found it?
I would say friends too, because this is what happened. So like, I was always like, I moved. So I went to Valleys, up to grade 8, which is in Saga, and then I moved up to Brampton. I went to Turner Fenn, off of Kennedy and something like that. And when I went there, of course, when I left Valleys, I was writing music, I was recording music, but like very subtly, right? Very, like, I wasn't doing it too much.
Did you have teachers recognizing your talent?
Not so to speak. It was kind of like it wasn't really for fun. You know what I mean? Like, not for fun. Sorry, it wasn't really serious. I should say it was more for fun, and it was kind of like under wraps. So it was between me and about 2 or 3 of my friends. One of my friends, this white guy, he was a big white guy, and at the time he idolized Big Pun, and that to me was really influential, because when I listened to rap at that time, of course, the only white rapper was Eminem. So to have a dude who I really fuck with, someone who's my friend, who I go to school with, share my homework with, then like after we're done homework, we're sitting there making songs, writing music, and to see that he's from a different type of background, I go to his house and everything's different, right? And it's like, it's like music can touch anybody. Like when I saw that, this guy loves Big Pun, like, and he was my boy for a while. But when I realized that he loved rap and I loved rapping too, and we were actually getting together and doing songs at his house and stuff, that's when I realized that, this guy, when you look at him, you don't think he would like a Big Pun, but like, I mean, like, he was a big guy. So for him to like Big Pun, it's like, you think about it and it might not be that hard to think about, but it's like, it's crazy that he likes that shit, right? So it's like, this guy likes Big Pun, probably because he can identify with him, which is dope.
Yeah.
Which is really dope. You know what I mean? He's not sitting there looking at himself like, I'm a big guy, like, I gotta lose weight, I gotta do this. He's looking at Big Pun and he's like, Big Pun's out there rapping, making tons of money, you know what I mean? And I can do that too, right? So at that point, that was defining for me as to make me more of a rapper. But
so you went to Turner Fenton, and then you ended up going to Applewood.
And then so what happened was,
so all this like transitioning back and forth, like you're bouncing back and forth. You're starting to make new friends, lose old friends,
Yeah. For sure. When I moved out of Saga, I definitely lost contact with a lot of friends, a lot of artists too, that I used to write with and whatnot. But more so the friends, you know what I mean? And I had to go start brand new. And when you're starting from grade 8 to grade 9, it's wasn't really wasn't really ideal, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I was like literally, I went to the orientation at Turner for grade 9, and I know nobody. So at the end of the orientation, I was sitting on the curb, literally just sitting on the curb by myself. And this girl, who was soon to become one of my good friends, named Unique, she approaches me and she's like, "Hey, what's going on? You new?" She's like, I'm like, "Yeah," and she's like, "Me too." Like, and she was grade 9 too, but she's like, "Come with me. Like, let's go chill out over here." She brings me over to this group of I think there was at least maybe like 8 or 9 people, and they came from Fletcher's Meadow, which is equivalent to Valleys. You know what I mean? So they came from Fletcher's, and um, she introduced me to them. And right from there, it was weird. It was like, she's black. I went into the group. There's two, three black guys, two Asian dudes, one white guy, two brown guys, you know what I mean?
Just a
And like
mix.
everyone's just talking, having fun, and they just accepted me with open arms. And until now, I talk to at least 4 or 5 of them still. You know what I mean? And it's crazy because, yeah, when you bounce around like that, so much influence goes on in your life. You don't even really think about it. Even like right now, like I'm, even just reminiscing about it, it's like it was such a long time ago. But like, what would happen if she never came up to me and never said anything, right? Because what ended up happening was I actually ended up rapping with 4 of those dudes in that group. And that happened because when they found out that I was doing music, they were influenced to do it. There was one other dude at that school named Jay Tempo, and I still remember his name. Actually, he's actually my photographer right now. So if you see some of the photos on like Apple Music and stuff, he takes those photos for
Nice.
me. And but he was like, when I first got there, he was like my rival. People called him my rival because when they looked at me and they looked at him, they saw us at the same level. I was doing songs, on my computer with a whack mic or whatever. He was doing on his computer with a whack mic.
Yeah.
But because we were doing it, the only ones actually doing it, they put us at the same level. You know what I mean? And then when I found out who he was, we started doing music together, right? And then that's where it kind of changed because I was like, like he was more into like I would compare him to Nas. He was like a Nas, I was like a Jay-Z kind of thing when it comes to style.
Mm.
Nas was a lot more, political, more straight to the point. His lyrics were very, his lyrics and delivery were very uh, monotone and I guess straight to the point kind of thing. Where Jay Z had a little more flair, more style. Talked about different things. And at the time, yeah, that was me because. And it's funny if you talk to anybody who remembers any of my old songs from like back in the day, they'll tell you, "Yo, you rap completely different. You rap the same, but you rap about different stuff now." Because back in the day, I used to be rapping about guns and drugs and this and that, and like now I'm a lot more conscious as to what I write, but at the same time, I still want people to know that, like, I mean, I don't want people to know, but I give off the idea that I come from this different kind of upbringing, which is definitely factual. But the fact is that I don't think I let it affect me the way that certain people have let it affect them. I feel like I can coexist with these people, plus I would say the corporate world is what I would call it, right? So but when it comes to like influence, yeah, I mean, my friends were influencing me like crazy, especially when you meet people brand new, and I mean, I was already an artist going into these different situations, so yeah, I definitely took things from it and put it into my music, right? But then when I moved back to Saga, I went to Applewood. So this was maybe about halfway through grade 10. I was there for grade 9 and then grade 10, and halfway through grade 10, I moved back to Saga. That's when I actually went to TL Kennedy for a semester, and then I went to Applewood after that. Now, TL Kennedy, very small stint there, really didn't influence me much as far as being an artist went, but my basketball career almost went like skyrocketed when I went to TL because when I got there, all of my friends from Valleys were there, so it was like not even like a thing. Like I went there and everyone was like, "Yo, yo, yo, yo," so it was a beautiful feeling. But I couldn't join the team because I came about like a week late. I
Oh,
couldn't join
why'd
the
you move, man?
um, I moved because we had some situations at home, you know.
Mm,
Yeah, it was a situation at home where you know, family was kind of under some stress and whatnot. We had to pretty much get away from certain individuals without going into complete detail, but yeah, I mean, it was. I mean, let's just say it's crazy how things work, but I mean, like the day that I moved back to Saga that morning, I didn't know what I was gonna do. Let's just say that morning I went to school like it was a regular day. I didn't know that that would be the day that I would not be going back to school
mm.
in Brampton.
Yeah,
You know
yeah.
what I mean? So
See, like
it
it's
was
funny. All these influences come from different areas, and
yeah.
how much they influence us as we go on. Um, I was talking a little bit about like, like you talk about these big names, Jay Z, Nas. Like growing up, our parents are a huge influence on our music. Anybody in your family kind of influenced the way you thought about music?
Most definitely. Actually, my mother for sure. My mother for sure. I mean,
What are some
when
tracks, or what is some music that you listened to back in the day, or you still
um
do? If
fuck
any?
Simon and Garfunkel. Um, fuck. A lot of gospel music, 100%. Like Bill Gaither is someone my mom really listens to. Um,
Nice.
shit, my mom listens to a lot of music and like a lot of different varieties of music, especially. But like Simon and Garfunkel was something that like I remember for sure. Like Elton John, and like when I say like listen to it, like so much ABBA, right? Like so ABBA, like especially ABBA, they had a greatest hits album that I personally used to just pop in and listen to it myself.
Hmm.
Now the reason why is because I used to make beats, so and my mom was very clear, like she knew how I used to do it because I would sample um like for instance maybe I think a song from Elton John called Butterflies. I think it's called Butterflies. But I sampled that song, made a dope beat, but like the beats that I made, I was making too many beats for the amount of rappers or artists that were actually going on them. So I was just piling beats, piling, and I would burn CDs and put them in the car and stuff. And like my mom would listen to them and be like, "Wow, like you actually turned the song that I listened to into like this hip hop beat."
Nice.
So much to the point where we would, you know, sometimes we'd go somewhere and she'd hear a song on the radio and be like, "Oh, you made a song like you made a beat out of the song." You know what I mean? Like, and it's funny because sometimes I wouldn't even remember, and even till this day, my mom would tell me, "Oh, like remember this song? You used to make a beat out of it. You used to do this. You used to do that." And
It's incredible just listening you think about the process, man. Like from a kid at your age learning how to use production apps or production
yeah,
software.
yeah,
Like
yeah,
you can go for hours on how that even went down, like where did you even begin learning how to
yeah.
use the technology, start burning
Mm,
CDs, start networking with like as a producer at a young age, and then meanwhile
mm,
being influenced by all these other factors in your life, and like that your mind must have been like just mind blown at such an early age, whereas like I never had that. I've never had that process of doing all of that, And I feel like you did this all naturally. This wasn't something that, you know, I'm sure your mom like said, hey, this is a great track and all, but she never expected you to take this music and change it completely, you know.
No, most definitely not. It
That's really cool, man.
definitely all came organically, came naturally. I
Yeah.
mean, even the fact that I started making beats, it was like I was rapping, and this is when I first got to Turner, and one of my boys, who was also one of my rappers or friends, and he's like, yo, I just got this beat making machine or this beat making program, and I'm like, he's like, yeah, it's called Fruity Loops, and
Oh yeah.
some people right now, they could be like, yeah, I made my first beat on Fruity Loops 6, Fruity Loops 7. I made my first beat on Fruity Loops 2. Okay, so that'll give you an idea. Like right now, Free Loops is so advanced, I can make a beat fucking with my eyes closed. But but Free Loops 2 was like, it was like ridiculously like it's just nothing how it is right now. But it's
Yeah.
crazy because dude had it, he had it, he downloaded the torrent or whatever it was. He had it on his CD, and then he's like, "Here, take it, whatever." It was crazy. It was just like I took it from him, had no clue what it was, just knew it made beats. Put it into my computer, installed it, made a few beats, didn't like it, didn't even touch it for like 3 months. One day, um, I go to my boy Daniel's house, one of my Asian boys, and he was a rapper too, and I go to his house. We're about to start making some tracks. And he's like, "Yo, listen to this beat I made." And he plays it, and I'm like, "You made this?" And he's like, "Yeah." So then I was like, "Oh, okay." That night, I didn't sleep. I didn't. I went, made beats, and I let's just and then it was just done from there.
Nice.
I was making beats for like the next maybe 3 4 years, steady 5 years maybe. I still have a big, like a good number of those beats, like the good beats that I got that I made. I still have them. I definitely still have them on a USB somewhere. But
What about video
um,
production, man?
the video
When'd
production,
you
I
start doing
mean,
that?
video production is more. I wanted to get into it. I was trying to get into it with like Final Cut. I was messing with some programs, but the video production I leave to those guys. I think that's an area where I don't really have to step into. But I definitely like when it comes to like being a director or even like just thinking up ideas for different videos. Like for instance, the New Breed video. Um, that whole video and that whole concept, everything. I mean, like to be honest, the guy who filmed it, he probably didn't even have to be there. Like everything was my idea. Everything was this right from the scratch of the song to the end of the video. Everything was pretty much my idea. And like the New Breed video, it's the concept is crazy. I wish like I even had time to talk about that too. Like
Dude, talk
that
about it,
whole
man. Like I thought that
process.
video was incredible.
Yeah, that whole thought process before I got into that video, is crazy. Just because I made the song New Breed, and when I thought about it, I was like, okay, New Breed. Like New Breed to me means okay, like I'm a different breed. Like I consider myself to be a gorilla. Gorilla is a nickname that came from my Turner Fenton days in grade 9. There was a dude that was rapping kind of against me. We were going back and forth on tracks, and he called me a gorilla as an insult. And when I hit him back with a diss track, I said gorilla man in a way that people just caught onto it, right?
Nice.
And after that, they were like, "Yo, like I can't believe that you switched this guy's insult into a nickname for yourself." And it just kind of like shut him whole down. Like it's almost like Eminem and 8 Mile when at the very end he pretty much raps freestyle and says everything that the dude's gonna say, so the dude can't really say anything.
Mm,
You know what I mean? So it was a tactic for me, but it worked out big time in the end. So, um,
nice.
but yeah, I mean, like, just that whole situation there, it really developed me and into that whole gorilla persona, right? So when I'm thinking about New Breed, I'm thinking about me being a different type of breed of person, um, on Earth with other people. Now, when I thought of that concept, and I wrote the song, I wasn't really thinking about the concept of the video until I looked into this concept. Not that I believe in it, but it's the whole reptilian shape shifting, and that's pretty much the basis for that video. I feel like that was the best way to portray the fact that I'm different, to portray the fact that I'm a new breed, but not in a sense where I'm a reptilian shapeshifter, which, these conspiracy theory videos, like when you see these videos, these guys are completely serious. They actually think that these guys are, reptiles that are on Earth shapeshifting to humans to, to sit here and create conspiracies and to, dictate certain things in the world. But when I saw those concepts, I was like, I need to, I need to embrace that into my video. So the reason why that clip is in the beginning, where it's like almost like a news clip, and it's like, the news clip slows down. You can see one of the reporters blink, and his eyes turn into some crazy white eyes or whatever. That was the beginning. So I put that at the beginning so that you can go into the mindset of where I'm at before watching the video. Then you watch the video and you realize, there's different times where he's looking at me and he has these eyes, and then there's different times where his eyes are normal. You know what I mean? And then I'm sitting there in, like, my king's chair with my dog and stuff like that. So it's
It's
a
packed
dope
with metaphor.
concept.
It's packed with metaphor and
It's
meaning.
packed, bro. It's packed.
And
It's
there's just
so
so much thought
packed.
that goes into the conception of the entire video is as a narrative that you've literally written, and
It's
the
crazy,
whole
man.
thing.
It's a whole story, man. It's a whole story, and that's what I want to do with my music. Like, that's why I, like, compared to maybe anyone who you've interviewed, I might have, a lot more material. But to me, there's not much material out there because, like, for instance, my new breed video is one of my very few videos. I think I have like three videos out there where I have the song "Do It," then I have the song "Greasy," and then I have the song "New Breed." And I only have three videos because I don't believe in tossing videos out there with a whole bunch of dudes in the background and stuff like that. Yeah, different songs call for that, and I'll probably end up doing a video like that too because that's what people want to see. But I'm into watching something and having to think of something different in order to understand what you're seeing. And that I think is the biggest thing, because once people understand, they give you a lot more credit than they do if they were just to, like your video or do this or do that. I mean, this video can stay on the internet and still create an impact for the longest time just because of the fact that it has content. It's not just, a video, right? And I wanted to make sure that, the dude recording it was, excellent quality, HD quality kind of thing. Knows how to film. I wanted it to be filmed cinematically so that it looks like a movie, right? So,
Let me ask you
and
this, my man.
yeah,
The production process, does that take away from your creativity?
production of the video, or are you talking about like more of the
Everything,
song
man. Like
itself?
this setting everything up and micromanaging and essentially being the entrepreneur. Like you've done everything, man. Like you've
Yeah,
produced your own music. You're featured in your own video. You have to manage all of this. I mean, you don't come off that way, but it is a very taxing thing, man. It's
yeah,
hard.
yeah,
It's
yeah,
it's a
yeah.
grind.
Most definitely. It definitely is. It definitely is hard. Definitely is hard. I mean, it's something that I love to do. I mean, I took a year off of music so I could understand the background of music, because I know it's not just, for a while I was just, sprung on the whole fact of going into the studio and recording music. But then you realize that after you're done, you walk out of the studio, you have your song in your MP3 or your USB or whatever. It's like, what are you gonna do with it now? You know what I mean? It's like it's got to be heard. You know what I mean? And there's different ways to do that, and it's really hard to think of that process. Sometimes, yeah, it takes away from the creative process, because now you have to, spend time on, how you're going to market certain things and how you're going to do this and how you're going to do that. Um, but sometimes it adds to the creative process. So sometimes you have this video that you want to do, and you have the song that's finished and whatnot, and you have some time to sit down, think about what you want in the video, and whatnot. Of course, it's taxing for sure. You know what I mean? So I mean, like, for instance, the chair in the New Breed video, I rented that for the day. The dude wouldn't even do an hour. I had to do it for the day, and I only needed it for like literally an hour, hour and a half, right? So I paid him a good $350 just to sit there for about, an hour and a half for the video. Paid the video guy, you know what I mean? And a lot of people think that it's just a video, and that's why, like, to me, I would never put that much effort into something that doesn't have content, something that you can't just leave on, something that doesn't mean anything when you actually see it, right? Just because, not because I'm paying all this money for it or whatever, but really just because of the fact that when you put out material, you want to make sure that people can actually, resonate with it. You know what I mean? And I think growing up doing music the way I was doing it before and the way I'm doing it now, like, I've understood it like tenfold. It's just crazy, my mind process, the way I think of things now and what I used to think of before when it came to making music and shit, right? So
I want to thank one of the new followers on this show. Someone just hit follow, so I want to thank them. But I want to go back to this idea of like people taking away from, like in your music, you talk a little bit about that. This idea is that people try to take away from some pure energy, right? This like, this idea you only needed that chair for an hour, and this guy or whatever company knows that they can charge you, that you desperately need it, and they'll charge you for the day. Like that to me is exactly what I'm talking about. Is like the process takes away from the creativity, and I have a lot of respect
yeah,
for you, man, because you've been grinding for a long time, and I can only imagine the trials and tribulations you have gone through. For example, like in Saga, for example, like I love my city, but I want to ask you, is there support in the arts? Well, how do you see the support? Is it grassroots? Is it there? Are there people that are in place that will support? Because tell me a little bit about that.
yeah. Support's hard, man. Support's hard. I mean, people. The way I see it, it's crazy because, like, I'll post certain things online at certain times, and I've actually done research on this kind of thing because, I mean, like, if you don't know what you're getting into, you're wasting your time. You know what I mean? So, um, there's actually certain periods in different points, like for instance on Instagram, where if you post between 5 and 5:30 p.m., your photo or your video will be seen by this much people, which will put it in a certain category for other people to see it. And if you get this many likes, it'll get put onto like in your explore page where people who aren't following you can see it, right? So it's a tiring process to understand the way everything works, especially the fact that everything right now compared to my career is relatively new. You know what I mean? So having to adjust to that, again, like I told you, I took that year off. I feel like that was the best year ever that I could have taken off because I feel like that year, I felt like that's the year when shit turned from CDs to MP3s, or from MP3s to buying CDs to buying subscriptions. And I feel like at that time, that's when I really understood what was really going on, how to really put stuff on iTunes, and that was more on iTunes. That was before Apple Music came out. When I had stuff on iTunes before Apple Music came out, and when the Apple Music came out, I was like, wow, this is incredible. This is even better because now my music can be played and people don't actually have to buy it. And that's the thing. Like, I want people's money, of course, just like everybody else, but I want people to listen more often. That's more my goal, to just grab a lot of listeners, people who not necessarily will listen to my brand new song, but who know my style. When they see, oh, he just dropped a new song, okay, cool, I listened to it, okay, I like it, whatever his album drops, you listen to it, you like most of the songs on it because you know who I am, or you know like my background, or you know just my style, right? There's people who have you know, their favorite artists, no matter what they drop, they'll listen to it. Whether they like it or not, they'll take the time to go listen to it. That's where I'm trying to get to with my music and stuff. It's just that when it comes to support, it's really hard to grasp, especially from people who you're close with. And it's ironic. It's ironic. I mean, you know, like you see memes and stuff like that, and they're just like, your friends will support, that person, that famous person before they'll support you and stuff like that. Are they really supporting you and whatnot? And like, it's crazy because I remember I used to drop a song and I used to message like, I would probably say 100 people per day on Facebook. Be like, yo, check out my track, check out my track, check out my track. To the point where Facebook blocks you because they think you're spamming people, which you kind of are spamming people, right? But it's crazy because the amount of love that I've gotten from strangers, the amount of reposts that I've gotten from people who don't know me is far more exceeding than, the number of people who actually legitimately love me and, care for me, right? There's people who I don't even want kind of promoting my stuff. Like, for instance, my girlfriend. I tell my girlfriend, I'm like, yo, you know what? When I drop a song, I would prefer that you can like it. I don't want her posting it. I don't want her reposting it. I don't want her, putting it on her story. I don't mind if, she's on Snapchat and it's playing on the background, but I don't want her to promote it on purpose. The reason why is because, and for so long, because of how long I've been in the music, like, I kind of see how things are, and like, I just don't want it to look like I have, this cosign who is my girlfriend, or this cosign who is my brother, or this cosign who is my best friend. I want people to see that other people are actually vibing to my shit, right? And it's crazy because, like, for instance, Tory Lanez, people don't know this, but me, like, I actually had a slight history with Tory Lanez when he lived in Brampton, and when he like, before he blew up. We were all at the same point. We were all at the same point. Me, him, and like a whole bunch of Toronto artists. I could probably name a whole bunch, but like, everybody was at the same point, which is crazy. And kudos to him because he made it with the circumstances that I'm facing, that I was facing, and he was able to rise above it. And I think it's not more of a situation where it's like, like a needle in a haystack kind of thing. I think it was just he was a extremely hard worker, and he was very transparent. You can see it. He always put up videos of him traveling through America, with his backpack on, doing shit, going here, getting noticed, going there, doing this, doing, open mics in LA and shit like that on his own dime. You know what I mean? So, like I said, kudos to him because he was very, 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 very persistent into what he wanted to do. But yeah, I mean, when it comes to support, it definitely wasn't there. He probably never had the support. But when you look at him right now, he drops an album. I personally, who know that I had a slight history with Tory Lanez, that are reposting his music before they repost mine. You know what I mean? So it's tricky because once you hit that line, everyone's gonna start supporting you. But once you're below that line, you're not gonna get that support that you want, and you gotta stay really persistent. You gotta stay with your head on your shoulders because it's discouraging when you can post something and people are looking at it but don't want to repost it. Because the way I see it is this, like, I used to have this thing a while ago, and this was to try and drive more traffic to my music, but at the same time, I genuinely think I'm very superstitious too, and I genuinely think that, like, I thought maybe if I start vibing to people's music, people will start vibing to mine, right? So I did this thing called Sharing Sundays on my Facebook, where I would literally on Sundays, which are the slow days, you wake up in the morning, you don't even know what you're doing, you're kind of just relaxing, whatever. And I would share people's music every Sunday, and it was all Toronto music. I would just share people's music every Sunday, just over and over and over and over and over again on my page. I would flood it every Sunday. You know what I mean? Just because people need that support. And I know how much it means to somebody just to repost it, just to look on someone else's page and see that someone on their page liked your song. And it's crazy because the thought process is like, what is that person thinking? You know what I mean? It's like, oh wow, this person doesn't even know me, doesn't even knows this person, and they're actually cool enough to go and like this photo, right? Which brings me back to my point where I was saying these artists don't get much support from people who actually love them, people who are actually around them, and whatnot. But again, it kind of goes for everything. You know what I mean? I bet girls out there who are trying to be models, probably don't have the same support they would have from people who love them, from people who are just out there on the internet scrolling through their feeds and stuff, right? It's easy to show love online. It's easy to show love. It's hard to pick yourself up, go to a show, right? But a lot of people go to shows, and you have to understand that this is the market. Some people are gonna go to shows. Some people are gonna support online. Some people are just gonna buy your song and listen to it, right? So it's a crazy market, and it's very divided. But at the same time, if you do your research like I did, you can identify how to hit people, where to when to post certain things to get the certain support, to get the eyes looking at your stuff, right? So but yeah, I mean, support is really hard to get, especially when you're an artist, you're a rapper in Toronto, which right now it seems to be like the laughing joke. When you go online, you start to see people put up memes, and they're like, oh, like like I saw a meme the other day where dude was looking up, like thinking, and the text said, this is how it looks when a Toronto rapper, or when a Toronto guy rhymes a word and he's thinking about being a rapper. You know what I mean? So they're trying to portray the fact that everybody is trying to be a rapper, and it's true. It's true. Everybody and their mother is literally trying to be a rapper, and you can be a rapper and you can't be a rapper, because you have to understand how it is to be an artist. Rappers are not just rappers. Rappers are artists. Rapping is what they do. You know what I mean? Rappers is like a slang word for artists, right? And it doesn't even make us sound good, to be honest. When you say artist, it's a lot more professional, and that's exactly what it is. This is a business, right? My catalog is equivalent to some dude's shop with a bunch of stuff behind the counter. When you get to the counter, you got to pay for what's behind the counter. You know what I mean? You got to pay for stuff in the store before you leave. That is kind of like music, but the way that people don't support it, the way that people think it's so nonchalant, like it's nothing, it doesn't take anything to do, is what makes it hard, and what makes us have to give things out for free all the time before we can actually get the support that we need, right? So it's a tricky business, but once you understand it, it's good. But I mean, at the end of the day, it's like, how long do you have before you can sit there and just understand all the shit before you actually start putting music out? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's all before music even gets out. You have to understand what's going on, what people are doing in their day, right? So
That's crazy, man. That's crazy. Like you mentioned that point about certain people watching your video but then not reposting it, and then somehow post somebody who's quote unquote more successful.
right.
I mean, it's interesting. It's like there's people that know you and have a connection with you, and yet they identify with something else. I just think that, like, I think we need to start moving away from this constant need for hive mind collectivity. It's like this idea that we need to connect with each other through someone who's humongous or huge.
Yeah.
But meanwhile, this conversation that I'm having with you has never been more real. and you're telling
Yeah.
me straight up what your grind is and everything that motivates you. And we grew up together. We never talked.
Yeah.
We're acquaintances, but I
Yeah.
identify with you more than I identify with any of these artists who are huge now,
Right.
right? And that's why I guess
Right.
like giving back and understanding that is, if you're truly successful, you can understand what the grind is like. So, yeah, thanks for sharing that, man.
Absolutely.
That means a lot,
Absolutely.
man. Um,
Yeah, man.
maybe we could cover some ground about, you know, how stacked the systems are. Like we talked a little bit about Apple Music and Spotify and these huge platforms where music is now pretty much they what's curate your music for you. They have these algorithms that they build so that if they
Yeah.
like a certain type of music, then they'll start putting in music for you. Now,
Yeah.
my question is, I'm just a consumer. I don't know the code behind anything. But when they say that they have like 2-3 million tracks on loop or like in the archive, and now they're gonna compile this perfect playlist for you based on the music that you listen to. You, come on, man, you can't tell me right now that there are certain people that aren't being played more than others, and that certain artists have more leverage than others. Let alone, you know, grassroots artists who are trying to make it into the scene. You know, other than SoundCloud, that I see that SoundCloud is sort of like grassroots. All these other platforms are sort of like, it's almost like the odds are stacked against you.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. Especially when, you know, they're changing all these things. I need that open. Changing all these things because it's like, you know, it like in that year that I took off of music, like they changed all these things to accommodate the society. You know, I would call them lazy because, you know, now everybody wants certain things done or certain things sent to them. Like now, like the algorithms that, you know, put your playlist together of what you want, whatnot. People don't want to, you know, search and do the things themselves. So you got to understand how that works, and you got to understand, you know, where to release your music so that it slides into those algorithms. Something I probably have not yet figured out because I mean, like, look, they have all these curators who are doing these playlists. They're making these Spotify playlists, and like right now, Spotify playlist is like the hottest thing going. And as an artist, like that's like one of the things now. It's like before it was getting your song on the radio, which I've done, you know, check that off my list. And now it's like getting your song on a playlist that will be on Apple Music, or getting your song on a playlist that'll be on, you know, on Spotify. But it's like it's almost like double as hard now.
Gee, you know what that
Especially,
makes me think, man? It's like they constantly say that they're promoting music and new artists, but what they're doing is they're killing creativity, man, because it's
they're killing it 100%.
like they're making all these artists work extra hard. Now they have to be an everything man, and it takes away from,
I totally
you
I
know,
totally agree. They tell you to hit up the email, send this track to this thing, and I mean, like me, I'm the kind of person that even reply, like appreciates a reply. But these kind of people are, you know, they always have that fine print in the bottom. Only those, you know, that are going to be contacted will be, you know, put through to the next level or whatever. And usually when I see that, I don't even send music over because to me, it's like I hate being. The way I see it is this: there's a lot of circles. There's a lot of circles in music. Now, I wouldn't. I've spent like almost all my career, all my music career, trying to penetrate these circles, and I need to, like, I've realized that, yo, like I need to make my own. I need to actually make my own lane and just go there and actually do my own thing and have people attract to me as opposed to me trying to get into that circle where a lot of people are already listening to it, you know. And like something that I always think of that resonates with me, that pretty much it keeps me on the ground a little bit. But I always think about like I always look at artists and I look at their followers, and you know, I look at, you know, like Drake, he'll be like, you know, thank you, I love my fans and whatnot. But if you really think about it, we're all fans of different people. When people say I love my fans, those fans are there for Drake. However, those fans, like for instance, Drake has maybe 60 million followers on his Instagram, but there's probably like, I would probably, safely say about 40 million of those are following, tons of other artists that they would call fans of that artist. You know what I mean? So that fact right there kind of puts me back on the ground when it comes to doing music. Kind of puts me back on my path, because it tells me that they're all sharing fans, and there's definitely a group there that I can have, or definitely a spot there that I can fit into. But it's like, do I want to fit into this circle, or do I want to just, do my own thing and see where it kind of takes me, right? It's kind of like a little bit of both. Once you get into the circle, it kind of jumpstarts your career, kind of jumpstarts your credibility. Migos had that song Versace, and the original song is the original song with no Drake, but Drake jumped on it, and that became the original song, right? And that propelled Migos into being who they are right now. You know what I mean? So they penetrated the circle, got in the circle, right? And kudos to them, right? But from that circle, they generated their own fan base, which of course consists of Drake's fan base, and Travis Scott's fan base, and Tory Lane's fan base, and this and that. You know what I mean? So that concept alone just keeps me on my ground, keeps me on my toes, keeps me working.
It seems to me that you can rely on people in the industry, like the producers in the industry, whereas, some of these systems that are set up, I mean, I know that I really like the Junos in the sense that it's almost like a platform that promotes Canadian music, right? When I look up Junos, I go, there's a bunch of music that I've never heard of, and then I look them up and I go, oh, these guys are decent, great community. But then you move up a notch. Gee, let's think about, like, for example, Canada Hall of Fame, right? Canada Music Hall of Fame. Okay, that's sort of a prestigious award that you can win, that you can earn. You look down the 30 or 40 years that it's been in existence, and you talk about representation. Oscar Peterson is the one black artist in that 40 years, okay? And he shared that award in 1978. Let's not even talk about Asian artists. Let's talk about anything else. I'm not talking about, I'm not talking about making sure, like, what is it, like, what's the word when you have to push people, like, push certain races? We're not talking about that. Like, this idea is like, when you talk about prestige and you have these things in place, are we helping artists get recognized, or are we pushing a certain agenda and putting things out? And I hate the fact that we have to talk about this, because you are, at the end of the day, an artist. I came to talk to you because I really like your music, man. And, you made me think about the local support that is so much more profound than to search for something else and to look for, people who have already been successful. But no, I don't know what you think about that. Like you say, you're a positive dude, man. You're a positive dude. I can feel the energy.
Yeah. I mean, when it comes to the Junos, like, actually one of my longtime friends actually just won a Juno. And I was doing music with him for a while too. Like, at that time, his name's Kirk Diamond. He does reggae. He actually won a reggae Juno. And so he's definitely on cloud nine right now, which is really dope. But you're right. I mean, they're not really focused on. I feel like they're not focused on propelling the music career, and I feel like that's why the Junos will never be compared to anything like the Grammys. Grammys, they have a problem because they have too many amazing artists. And whenever they give a Grammy to one person, they have the fan bases of everybody else who was nominated putting down the Grammys like crazy. You know what I mean? But people still go and watch the next year because they know what's popping. They know what's good, right? Junos, I feel like they're not really handing the stuff out, the hardware out to the right people. You know what I mean? And I feel like they're doing it because they want to stick to their Canadian roots. But I mean, at the end of the day, music is music, and music evolves, and everything, like time changes everything. You know what I mean? And over time, yeah, people who are doing the work, people who are getting the clout should be getting the trophies. You know what I mean? Like we were talking earlier about how Drake probably should have won one of those awards, right? And you're right. I mean, Drake is, I mean, if Drake will go down in history, he will go down in history. Not just because of the fact that he's a rap artist and he was able to break through that super huge barrier in Canada to be who he is right now. But after that, after the fact, after his like there was actually a point in time where I like Drake, but I was like he never really talks about Toronto. He never really fucks with Toronto. And this was like maybe the first 2 or 3 years of his career. And I realized that he could be just staying in his lane until he gets to a certain point, and then he's just gonna go off on Toronto. And that's what I think he did. I think he did that because right now, he's doing so much for Toronto, and not just Toronto, but everywhere else. The God's Plan video, he's all up in Miami, handing things out, handing money out, handing scholarships out. But people don't realize that, yeah, maybe he didn't do that in Toronto, but this is a Toronto person going to Miami to do this. You know what I mean? So this is definitely something that like it's big. It's big. Like, America always thinks Canadians are nice. Look at what Drake just did. Like, it doesn't even make people think stereotypes anymore. It's just like, wow, this is amazing. This is incredible. What's happening right now? And when you're from Toronto, it's just so much more amazing, and you just get these butterflies in your stomach when you start to see Drake do certain things like that, because as an artist, it's like you want to be able to do that yourself, but you just love the fact that someone's doing it anyway.
I would
You know
argue
what I
that
mean?
you do it for Saga, man.
I try. I try. There's a few artists out there
I
that
know
are
them. I
from
know them too. I know them too.
right? You know what I mean? So, that are definitely doing it. And me, you know what? I try my best, man. I try my best, and I love Saga to death, and that's definitely somewhere where that has a huge place in my heart. I mean, like most of my life was in Saga. Most of my experiences were in Saga, right? So, I mean, I love Saga, and it'll always be close to my heart. You know what I mean? And but like, yeah, there's definitely a lot of other people who are out there right now who are doing their thing, right?
Hmm.
You don't really hear them talk about Saga every now and then, but at the end of the day, we know, right? So,
Yeah.
but it's definitely positive to see, somebody from Toronto doing things like that, and it's very inspiring too. Which, I think he deserves an award or two, definitely from the Junos. You know what I mean? Because if we can start recognizing, I mean, we don't have to give it to him 10 years in a row. He might deserve it 10 years in a row. He might deserve it, very well deserve it, but we don't have to give it to him that many times. But we can at least recognize it, put him in the books, because God forbid if he were to pass away, he would be definitely someone. He is going down in history, regardless if it's just Canadian history, because he's setting records all over the world. You know what I mean? And it's just undeniable, right? So,
G, G,
I feel like,
before I let you
yeah,
go, I want to ask you, like, I want to thank you for telling
mm,
stories, bro. I'm from
yeah,
Mississauga, and I've been away for a long time now. And when I listen to your music, I get nostalgic, and some of those videos that you do,
start thinking about
the
it.
401, and like some of the areas that you do your shots, and some of the boys that your collabs and everything. And I recognize some of the guys, and I can see the cadence and the way you talk. It reminds me of home. I get nostalgic. So I appreciate your music, man. I really do. Is there
Yo,
any?
man, honestly, it's all love, man. Honestly, to be able to know that you're out there listening to my music, or even just, out there, when you hear it, you start to think about things from back in the day. Yo, that's all I could really ask for, man. I mean, really, that's what music is for, man. When I get that love, it really puts me in the spot to keep going. So. Definitely, man, and what you're doing here is amazing, bro. I mean, I love the fact that we're sitting here talking and whatnot, and I hope to do this again at a later time where who knows, I could be at a different point, you could be at a different point, but at the end of the day, we'll be able to meet back together and talk about some shit, right?
Anything big that's coming up you want to talk about before we go?
Yeah, I got the Rejuvenation project coming out, collaboration with Juvie,
Nice,
right? Juvenation, which is the reason why it's Rejuvenation.
nice.
Um, and then I got something else coming out called the Full Serve. Now, the Full Serve, that's pretty much going to be a very intimate type of album. I named it Full Serve. I did a photo shoot at a gas station, and I have this one shot where I'm sitting right next to the pump, and I'm smoking a blunt, and it's a really dope shot. And I really like I thought about it, and I'm like, I wanted to drop a project that, you know, was a lot more, the beats were a little more toned down, a little more quiet so you can really hear what I'm saying. I want the lyrics to be a little more, intimate, more metaphorical, so that you have to hear it. You can reside with it or whatever the case is. But really, the full serve the idea is, self-serve gas stations, you do it yourself. Full serve gas stations, you go there and it's done for you.
Nice.
You know what I mean? So the full serve idea is you're gonna pop in this song, you're gonna listen to this project, and I'm gonna give you everything that I feel in my heart on this project. So full serve, that's probably gonna drop. I'm thinking maybe somewhere around not summertime, but maybe late summertime. And then I'll probably have a Halloween project going on. Nightmare Before Christmas will be my part two. I have a part one that's out there right now, NB4C. And that's pretty much. I mean, even that tells a story. If you listen to that EP, there's a lot of cuts from the movie Nightmare Before Christmas itself. With Jack Skellington, right? So I mean, yeah, bro. I just try to make content in my music, so make it so that you're listening to something that'll put you in a different mind state. So, yeah, man.
Thanks for your time, man. Keep it real.
Absolutely, bro.
Okay, man.
You know what it is.
Thanks, man. Thank you for those who are tuning in. That was Geneva GM. You can check out some of his work on iTunes. And that was a great conversation. I'll be writing a piece about him when I get the time. So thanks for those who are hanging out, and I hope you guys enjoyed it. Cheers. Have a good night.